Welcome back, Chappelle. Welcome back to your Flip Classroom and our now enriching, continuing discussion of the Stuart monarchy in England, right? So today in class, we got to the point where we are transitioning from everything that went down in Spain, which includes all the stuff with Charles V, Philip II, Spanish Armada, Elizabeth, all that stuff. Well, Elizabeth's Queen of England. She's not really from Spain, etc., etc., etc. Bloody Mary, phantom pregnancy, all that stuff, right? We reviewed all that, talked about how Spain is going to begin to weaken geopolitically and everything like that. And now we're moving into England. So most of class we actually spent talking about the English Parliament, right? We talked a lot about what it is, how the government in England is actually a constitutional monarchy, not an absolute monarchy. And basically, spoiler alert, we talked about how some guys are going to try and take it to absolute monarchy, but they're never going to actually achieve this, right? Now, what we're about to start talking about is one of my areas of expertise. It's something I'm very, very, very well knowledgeable in. It's something I know a ton about. So if you have any questions, make sure you ask. But where we left off in class, we were talking about how in 1603, Elizabeth is going to die, right? Now, the thing about the throne of England and stuff like that, they want to try and avoid a large-scale civil war. The thing that they don't want to happen again is the thing that happened back in the day known as the War of the Roses, right? The War of the Roses was this massive civil war that actually put Elizabeth's family in power, right? Not Elizabeth herself, but Elizabeth's grandfather, right? Henry VII is going to end up ruling England and the Tudors take over, okay? Well, they want to avoid that whole thing. Civil wars are never good. Hundreds of thousands of people die. It's never really a positive thing. Pestilence is bad. Nobody likes getting shot. So the thing about it in the long run is when she dies, they decide, the English Parliament decides to pass the monarchy to her closest living relatives, right? Which are the people known as the Stuarts, right? The Stuarts are the monarchs of Scotland, which, just to give you a heads up, they're on the same island. Like England and Scotland are on the same island. Scotland is the northern portion. England is the southern portion. Well, the thing about it is that at this time period, Scotland and England are two different kingdoms, right? Well, the plan is to give the crown of England to the rulers of Scotland, and the idea that they were planning on her for a long, long time is that would go to a woman named Mary, Queen of Scots, right? Well, here's the issue. She has a very bad case of death, all right? So she's already dead as well, and a lot of it has to do with that crazy story I told in class. B period, we'll talk about it at the end of the day. But the thing about it though in general is we had to B period, we'll talk about it in class while we're reviewing and stuff like that. But the big thing about it though is that she ended up dying in this horrific execution story and stuff like that. There was a dog and a bright red dress and all this other stuff and a rookie executioner that just doesn't know how to hit something with an axe properly. But what ended up going down though is that Mary Queen of Scots is unfortunately already dead. She actually was executed in 1587, almost 20 years before Elizabeth ever even died. So who gets it instead then? Is there a ruler of Scotland? Well, there is, right? The ruler of Scotland is a man by the name of James, right? So the throne is going to pass to him. He is Mary Queen of Scots' son, okay? Now, there's an interesting little facet about this whole thing. So how do you think the guy that's coming to power in Scotland is going to feel about the kingdom he's coming to rule with the fact that, they kind of killed his mom and stuff like that at one point? Well, the funny thing about it, though, is that James hasn't seen Mary Queen of Scots, his mother, since he was a 1-year-old baby, right? She actually left and was put under house arrest in England while he was 1 year old. And what's going to end up happening is he lives out most of his life, turns up that it was 18, 19, 20s, and then literally becomes the King of England, right? So the throne is going to pass to him, which really, really quickly, big thing we need to understand, he is a Protestant. Whereas his mom, Mary Queen of Scots, was a Catholic, okay? So this is going to be important, though, because it's showing us a peaceful transition into another Protestant ruler. Now, James, on the other hand, though, in real life, looks like this, right? He also was a really, really big jerk and stuff like that. He was very, very cantankerous and intense, and he also did like the idea of wearing a jerkin or a kilt from time to time because he is Scottish. But in his mind, he saw himself like this. He believed in himself to be an absolute monarch, right? He thought that he had the divine right of kings. He was like, I should be able to do anything I want. I should be able to say what I want, spend the tax money how I want, and do anything, anytime, whenever, okay? Because he absolutely loathed the Parliament. James the First, James the First, you see what I did there? I thought Mr. Terry I thought that you said he was James the Sixth. All right, so really, really quick, I hear all of you are saying. He is James the Sixth, and he's also James the First, okay? So really, really quickly, let's pump the brakes real quick and explain that real fast. He is the 6th king of Scotland named James. He is the 1st king of England named James. So the thing about it is when you see him on the test, it's going to say James the first and the sixth, okay? So when he takes over, though, a big thing's going to happen, and the crowns of Scotland and England are going to be united, and they're united into one contiguous kingdom, right? Now, again, though, when he comes to power, he's very intense. He believes that he's an absolutist. He hates the idea of having to rule with a parliament. He doesn't want to do it whatsoever. Actually, at one point, he was supposed to go down an open parliament, and one of the advisors was like, oh, you haven't been to parliament lately. You need to go down to parliament. You need to go talk to them and stuff like that. And he said, God's wounds, I'd rather show them me arse, right? I would rather show them my butt than go down there and show them my face, right? So the thing about it is he does not like them, right? Because he thinks he is an absolute ruler. He believes that with the divine right of kings, he should be allowed to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. But the thing about it is he has some problems he has to deal with to ever get to this point, right? So the thing about it is, if he wants to be an absolutist, he has to fix these issues he's got. One, the parliament, of course. He doesn't like them. He wants to figure out ways to get rid of them and stuff like that, and he never successfully does it. Just to give you a heads up, he's never able to get rid of the parliament because you're just never going to get rid of the parliament. It's England. It doesn't happen that way, right? Now, another huge issue he has are these people known as Puritans. Puritans are a group of people that are Protestant faithful that are popping up all over England, and a lot of them are beginning to get elected into Parliament as members of Parliament. So that's very scary for James, right? Puritans are really intense, okay? So let's talk about who they are really fast. Puritans, that's their nickname, okay? Puritans are literally referred to as the people that want to take all the Catholic elements out of the Anglican Church. Now, to understand what we're talking about, you need to know what Anglicanism is, right? Anglican Church, that's Church of England. It's the one that Henry VIII started up. Oh, wait, Mr. Terry, you mean I have to remember something from an earlier unit? Yeah, you do, because this is a Western Civ class and a very intense history class. We build on the stuff we've already learned, right? So the Puritans want to get rid of all the Catholic-y things about the Church of England, right? Now, the reason why they exist this way is because y'all remember Bloody Mary? When she came to power, she was super Catholic, and she had a bunch of people burned at the stake and stuff like that. Well, a group of Anglicans ran away to Switzerland, where they met a very famous man named John Calvin, right? And John Calvin taught them the ways of Calvinism and taught them the ideas of predestination and all these other things. And so when these people that ran away to Switzerland moved back to England when Bloody Mary died, they were very intense. Puritans don't think you should wear any colors other than black and white. Think that you shouldn't drink alcohol. Think you shouldn't sing in the streets. Think you shouldn't dance randomly. Think you shouldn't have really, really aggressive, really big, grandiose things. That you should kind of live a very pauper style lifestyle. That you should close theaters and bars. Those are those guys, right? And so when they came back, they wanted to get rid of all the Catholic elements of the church or purify it. So the Anglicans called them Puritans, right? Well, the thing about it is James has to deal with them because they don't want to give him any money. They don't want to give him any tax money. And they also are starting to try and dictate the way that English religious life goes, right? So he's got to deal with that issue as well. The other big thing that he's got a problem with is he wants more money, all right? So James the First wants more money to spend on himself. He loves having these huge parties at Whitehall Palace. He loves doing all this really, really big over-the-top stuff. And he has an allowance. He gets a little bit of money from from old English tax called tonnage and poundage. But he doesn't think it's enough, and he wants more, right? Problem is, as we learned in class, who controls the tax money? Oh, none other than Parliament, which now has a lot of Puritans in it. So as you can tell, he's got a huge set of issues. He's not very well liked by a lot of people and stuff like that. Actually, the English people used to make fun of him all the time, right? Very, very aggressively. They used to say really mean things about him and stuff like that. And also, he had a lot of crazy stuff happen under his rule. All these different things happened while James was in power. And he only ruled from 1603 to 1625, right? So from 1603 to 1625, which is about 22 years, a lot of stuff is going to happen to James in this time and process, okay? Now, interestingly enough, he was married. James the First and Sixth was married. He had a couple of sons. One's name was Henry. The other's one's name was Charles, right? Everybody was really, really excited for Henry to take over because Henry was young, charming, and a strapping young man that everybody thought was going to be a great king one day, right? Charles, on the other hand, is a sickly little boy and stuff like that who had to stay in Scotland because his family was like nervous that he wouldn't survive the trip. Very skinny, had a stutter and stuff like that. Nobody wanted him to become king. He also was kind of a jerk as well. But the big thing about it, though, is just to give you a heads up, that's like what his family life is like, okay? So a lot of different stuff, though, is going to go down in James's early rulings, all right? First of all, you know James very well. He's who the Jamestown colony is named after, okay? So in 1607, when Jamestown is actually founded, it was under his guidance, okay? Jamestown was founded with King James in mind. Named it for the Virginia Company after Queen Elizabeth, but in the long run, James is the guy that begins colonization of the United States, right? Or what is now the United States. Also, another big colony he's going to have set up is Plymouth, okay? Because those people are Puritan separatists, right? There's two types of Puritans that you need to understand for this lesson and stuff like that. There are Puritans who want to take all the elements out of the Anglican Church that are Catholic, and then there are Puritan separatists. Puritan separatists believe they're never going to get rid of those elements, so we should just leave, right? And so those people left, and they founded the Plymouth Colony. James granted them this charter, and in 1620, they founded the Plymouth Colony. That's a typo. I'm supposed to say 1620. Now, going into it, though, as well, as you can tell, James is very aggressive. He's very intense. He's also very Protestant, right? Well, the thing about it is a lot of people were really, really hoping when he came to power, they were like, look, we know James is a jerk. We know he yells at people. We know he freaks out. We know all these different things. But what we think will happen is for the Catholics that are secretly hiding out in England, maybe he'll be nice to us. Maybe he'll allow Catholics to worship in the public. Maybe he'll allow us to do these things because his mom was Catholic. So maybe he'll actually be chill about this. Turns out he wasn't. He actually passed even more laws not allowing Catholics to actually worship in public. And what's going to end up going down because of this is an event known as the Gunpowder Plot, where this guy right here that you need to write his name next to Gunpowder Plot, his name is Guy, G-U-Y, literally Guy, G-U-Y. His name is Guy Fawkes. F-A-W-K-E-S, okay? So Guy Fawkes and a couple of other Catholics, about 6 other Catholics, made a plan after James came out with more anti-Catholic laws. After more anti-Catholic laws came out, they decided that, you know what? We can't win. He won't help us out. His mom was Catholic. He's betraying her legacy. Let's kill him. So they plan an assassination attempt. And on November 5th, 1605, they literally knew that James was going to be going down to Parliament to open a session of Parliament. So they shoved several tons of gunpowder in the basement of Parliament, and we're going to blow him up when he got there, right? Well, now the interesting thing about it is they got busted, right? Guy Fawkes actually got busted before he could ever actually light the fuse, and the bomb never went off, and he got in trouble, and he got interrogated, and then he got executed, and he gave up all of his conspirators. Now, the thing about it is, for any of y'all that have ever actually seen these different elements, that's V for Vendetta, or heard about that guy Anonymous online and stuff like that, this is actually a Guy Fawkes mask, right? If you've ever seen this before, it basically is now today a symbol of political dissidence, right? So looking at the entire thing, though, as well, you need to understand that the Gunpowder Day is going to be an absolutely crazy day, and it's celebrated every single November the 5th. They call it Bonfire Night as well. Well, they burn these big bonfires in England, and kids get out of school early and stuff like that, and they shoot off fireworks and all this other fun stuff. And there's a really fun poem that goes along with the Gunpowder Day to talk about the day that basically the king almost died because he almost got blown up by a bunch of Catholics, because the Gunpowder Day is going to turn into an anti-Catholic holiday. And the poem goes like this: Remember, remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I should think of no reason why the gunpowder treason shall ever be forgot, right? So as you can tell, it's a very important event in England, right? So this all, again, happens under James's rule, right? He's colonizing stuff. He's almost getting blown up. And he has the Bible translated into English, known as the King James Version of the Bible. For anybody that's a Protestant in the house, like I was raised Protestant, we use the King James Version of the Bible very, very predominantly, right? So he's going to have that translated into English. He also tried to make tobacco illegal at one point, and that blew up in his face because nobody listened to him. He wanted to raise taxes for himself, and the Parliament refused. And then there was also a lot of other controversy. But we'll talk about that as well when we get back into class and stuff like that, because we don't want to make this flip a little bit too long. But so obviously what's going to happen is every single time that James and stuff like that tries to do any of this stuff with Parliament, tries to raise taxes, they tell him no, right? And it got to one point where, jot this down, James is going to do something really important. Jot this down. Listen to me carefully. Write this down. It's very important. James actually at one point got so angry at Parliament that he dissolved them, which means he fired them, right? Which is a power that the King of England has, but you're only supposed to do it during times of emergency, right? And he only ever did it once because he got really, really mad that they wouldn't increase his tonnage and poundage, wouldn't give him more money and stuff like that. And so eventually he dies like in Whitehall Palace, and now rule is going to actually pass to his angry son. Well, remember, it's supposed to be Henry, the strong, strapping, handsome Henry that's going to take England into a grand new direction. Problem is, Henry died when he was 14, unfortunately. Sorry about that. I forgot that element of the story. No, I didn't. I always just like to say it for this point. Henry died, which means that now actually rule is passing to his son, Charles I, right? And Charles is not going to be a very nice person. He's going to be very, very intense, and we'll talk a lot about him in class. See y'all soon. Y'all have a good one.